Let's be real. There's something about a woman who knows her worth, who doesn't beg, who doesn't chase. She doesn't sit by the phone waiting for a text. She's got a life, goals, passion. And guess what? Men can't resist her, because here's the truth. Neediness is a turnoff. Confidence is a magnet. When you attach yourself too tightly to a man, when you make him the center of your world, he feels it. He knows he's got you no matter what. And when something is too easy to get, we don't value it. That's just human nature. But when you detach, when you stop overthinking every message, stop bending over backward to please him, stop making him responsible for your happiness, everything shifts. Suddenly, he's the one wondering about you. He's the one putting in the effort. Why? Because scarcity creates value. The less available you are, the more valuable you become. Let me make one thing clear. Detaching doesn't mean playing games. It doesn't mean pretending you don't care when you do. It means you stop seeking validation from him and start validating yourself. You get so busy building a life you love that whether he stays or goes, you're still whole. And you know what happens then? Men step up. When a woman has emotional control, when she's calm, confident, and unshaken, she becomes irresistible. Because deep down, men want to earn a woman's attention, not be handed it for free. So if you want a man to respect you, value you, and chase you, stop chasing him. Detach. Focus on yourself. And watch how everything changes. When you chase, when you overextend, when you're constantly checking your phone, waiting for a response, men feel that energy. And let me tell you, it doesn't draw them in, it pushes them away. Because the moment a man senses that you need him more than he needs you, the dynamic shifts. You lose your power. He no longer has to put in the effort because he knows he already has you. But when you pull back, when you stop trying so hard, when you shift your focus from him to you, everything changes. Confidence is magnetic. It commands attention without ever having to beg for it. And the moment you embody that confidence, when you genuinely know your worth, he can't help but be drawn in. Think about it. We all crave what feels scarce. When something is readily available, when there's no challenge, we take it for granted. That's just how human nature works. If you're always texting first, always available whenever he wants to see you, always adjusting your plans around his schedule, he doesn't have to work for you. He doesn't have to prove anything. He knows you'll always be there no matter what. And when something is guaranteed, we don't value it as much. But the moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop needing his attention to feel good about yourself, the moment you start living your life for you, he notices. Suddenly you're not so predictable. You're not at his beck and call. You're not sitting around waiting. And that's when his mind shifts from she'll always be there to wait, where is she? What's she doing? That's the power of detachment. It's not about playing games. It's not about pretending to be busy or acting like you don't care. It's about actually shifting your energy away from seeking his validation and onto yourself. When you become genuinely happy, when you focus on your goals, your passions, your friendships, your personal growth, your energy shifts. You radiate confidence, and that energy is irresistible. Men don't want a woman who revolves her life around them. They want a woman who has a life of her own, a woman who brings value into their world instead of just trying to cling to theirs. Because here's the truth. Men are naturally wired to pursue. They thrive on the thrill of the chase. But when you make yourself too available, when you're always reaching out, when you're always trying to prove your worth to him, you rob him of that instinct. You take away the challenge. And without a challenge, attraction fades. But when you step back, when you focus on your own happiness, when you become the woman who doesn't need a man but chooses one based on how he treats her, men take notice. because suddenly they see you as high value. They see you as someone who won't just accept the bare minimum. And that's when they start to show up differently. That's when they start putting in the effort. Not because you ask them to, but because they feel the shift. So if you want to be the kind of woman that men can't resist, stop needing them. Stop chasing. Stop making them your priority before they've proven they deserve that place in your life. Instead, focus on being the best version of yourself. Build a life that excites you. Find confidence in who you are and watch how effortlessly the right men gravitate toward you. Detachment is not about being cold, distant, or pretending you don't care. It's about stepping into your power and realizing that your happiness, your worth, and your emotional well-being do not depend on how someone else treats you or whether they choose to stay in your life. It's about refusing to let another person's actions dictate your mood, your confidence, or your sense of self. When a woman masters emotional detachment, she becomes unstoppable because she no longer operates from a place of fear or insecurity. She operates from self-assurance and strength. When you're emotionally attached to someone, their slightest actions or lack of attention can send you into a spiral. If he texts back right away, you feel great. If he takes hours or doesn't respond at all, your mood drops, and suddenly your mind is flooded with doubts. Does he still like me? Is he losing interest? Did I do something wrong? And just like that, you've handed over all your power. Your emotions are at the mercy of someone else's behavior. And the more you attach, the more you crave validation, the more you overanalyze every interaction, the more you start to chase, even if you don't realize it. But when you detach, you take that power back. You stop overthinking. You stop making someone else's attention or lack of it the center of your world. You stop playing out every worst case scenario in your head because you realize that no matter what happens, you'll be fine. You don't need constant reassurance because you already know your worth. You don't let his inconsistent actions shake you because your confidence isn't tied to his behavior. You don't get pulled into emotional games because you've removed yourself from the need for external validation. Men can feel this shift. They can sense when a woman is fully secure in herself, and it's incredibly attractive. Because a woman who is emotionally detached in a healthy way isn't easily shaken. She doesn't react out of desperation. She doesn't beg for attention. She doesn't tolerate breadcrumbs of affection, hoping that one day he'll wake up and realize her worth. She already knows her worth, and she walks away from anything that doesn't align with it. And that right there is the ultimate power. When a man sees that he can't control your emotions, when he realizes that you're not waiting on him to define your happiness, it shifts the entire dynamic. He starts to see you differently. He starts to respect you more. And in many cases, he starts to chase. Because the moment he feels like he could lose you, the moment he realizes you're not afraid to walk away, he understands that he can't just do the bare minimum and expect you to stick around. Detachment forces a man to step up or step aside. It removes the gray area. It sets a standard without you ever having to say a word, because when you're detached, you naturally move in a way that communicates, I'm not here to convince you to choose me. I'm here to live my life, and if you want to be part of it, show me. You don't beg. You don't wait around. You don't try to prove why you're good enough. You simply exist in your power, and that energy is irresistible. Men are drawn to women who embody this mindset because it signals strength, confidence, and a sense of self-worth that doesn't waver based on external factors. It creates a natural allure, a sense of mystery, and a challenge that makes them want to rise to the occasion. When you detach, you stop chasing love and start attracting it effortlessly. Because at the end of the day, the most powerful woman in the room is the one who knows she never has to beg for what she deserves. Scarcity creates value. It's a universal truth that applies to everything in life, including relationships. When something is easily accessible, always available, and requires no effort to obtain, people tend to take it for granted. But when something is rare, when it requires effort, when it holds a level of exclusivity, it becomes more desirable. This is exactly why men are drawn to women who don't make themselves overly available. When a woman operates from a place of scarcity, meaning she doesn't give her time, energy, or attention to just anyone, she becomes significantly more attractive. Men are wired to appreciate and value what they have to earn. When you are constantly accessible, always answering his texts immediately, always available whenever he wants to see you, he subconsciously starts to view you as something he doesn't have to work for. It's not that he doesn't like you, it's that there's no urgency to keep your attention because he knows it's already his. But when you create a sense of scarcity by focusing on yourself, by not always being readily available, by showing that your time is valuable, it changes the entire dynamic. Suddenly, he starts wondering where you are, what you're doing, and why you're not as accessible as before. That's when he starts to put in effort. This isn't about playing games. It's not about manipulating someone by purposely ignoring them or making them jealous. It's about recognizing that your time and energy are valuable and not everyone gets unlimited access to you. When you treat yourself as a high-value woman, others start to see you that way too. The difference between a woman who is constantly available and one who values herself enough to set boundaries is massive. One gets taken for granted while the other gets pursued. Think about luxury brands. They don't beg people to buy from them. They don't put their products on clearance or make them overly accessible. They maintain exclusivity, and because of that, people line up for them. People want what is rare, what is unique, what is not easily attainable. You must start seeing yourself in the same way. You are not someone who is just there whenever it's convenient for someone else. You have your own life, your own passions, your own priorities. And when you live like that, when you become the woman who doesn't drop everything for a man, he starts to respect you differently. A woman who creates scarcity in a relationship isn't doing it to get attention. She's doing it because she truly values her time. She's not waiting around for a man to text her or make plans. She's not making herself emotionally available to someone who hasn't proven they deserve that level of access to her. And that attitude naturally makes men put in more effort. They start to see you as a challenge, as someone who isn't easily won over. And that triggers a different level of attraction. When a man feels like he could lose you if he doesn't step up, he starts to act differently. He starts prioritizing you, planning things in advance, making sure he's doing what it takes to keep you interested. That's because he knows you are not someone who will just sit around and wait. The moment you become a woman who values herself enough to create scarcity, you shift the power dynamic in any relationship. You go from being the one chasing to being the one pursued. You stop trying to prove your worth and instead let your actions show that you already know it. The women men can't resist are the ones who understand this. They know that availability without effort leads to being taken for granted. They know that by living a full life, by not always being accessible, by holding a standard for how they should be treated, they create a natural allure. They don't have to beg for attention because their presence is already valuable. They don't have to chase because they naturally attract the right kind of effort. And that is why scarcity creates value, because when a man knows he doesn't have unlimited access to you, he will do what it takes to keep you close. Men are wired to pursue. It's in their nature to go after what they want, to work for something that feels just out of reach, to feel a sense of accomplishment when they win over a woman they truly desire. But when something comes too easily, when there is no challenge, when there is no effort required, the attraction starts to fade. This is why a woman who detaches who doesn't make a man the center of her world, who isn't constantly trying to prove her worth, becomes irresistible. She triggers a man's natural instinct to chase, to step up, to show her why he deserves her attention. When a woman is overly available, always responding instantly, always rearranging her schedule to fit his, always putting in more effort than he does, the challenge disappears. There's no need for him to put in any extra work because he already knows he has her. And when something feels guaranteed, it's human nature to stop valuing it as much. But when a woman pulls back, when she focuses on her own life, when she becomes a little unpredictable, she shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, he's not so sure where he stands with her. He starts wondering if she's thinking about him, if she's interested, if he needs to do more to keep her attention. That uncertainty, that slight feeling of not knowing, is what makes a man invest more. This doesn't mean playing mind games or manipulating emotions. It means understanding the power of energy. When you put all your energy into a man, when you constantly seek his validation, when you're always available, he feels it. And instead of drawing him in, it often pushes him away. But when you pull back, when you invest that energy into yourself, your passions, your goals, your happiness, he feels that too. And that is what makes him want to come closer. He senses that you are not dependent on his presence to feel fulfilled, and that makes you stand out. Men want to feel like they've earned a woman's affection. They don't want someone who is just waiting around for them to decide what they want. They are drawn to women who have their own sense of purpose, who have their own standards, who don't lower themselves just to fit into a man's life. A woman who detaches emotionally doesn't beg for love. She doesn't plead for attention. She doesn't tolerate bare minimum effort. Instead, she allows a man to show what he's capable of. She gives him the space to step up. And if he doesn't, she keeps moving forward without hesitation. That kind of confidence, that level of self-respect is intoxicating. A man who truly values a woman will recognize that she is not someone he can take lightly. He will feel the need to show up, to be intentional, to prove himself. Because deep down, men don't just want an easy relationship. They want one that feels meaningful, one that challenges them to be better. And that only happens when a woman holds herself to a higher standard. A woman who detaches doesn't waste time on someone who isn't sure about her. She doesn't cling to the idea of what could be. She sees things for what they are. And if a man isn't meeting her halfway, she doesn't beg, she lets go. And ironically, that's when men start to chase. That's when they start showing up differently, putting in effort, making it clear that they don't want to lose her. Because when a woman values herself enough to detach, she becomes the challenge they can't resist. Emotional control is one of the most powerful things a woman can have. It sets her apart, makes her unforgettable, and creates an energy that men can't resist. When a woman is reactive, when she lets every little thing a man does dictate her mood, when she overanalyzes his texts, his words, and his actions, she gives away her power. But when she masters her emotions, when she remains calm, composed, and unshaken, she commands a level of respect and admiration that cannot be ignored. Men are naturally drawn to women who exude confidence and self-assurance. A woman who is emotionally in control doesn't fly off the handle over small things, doesn't beg for attention, and doesn't allow a man's inconsistent behavior to shake her. She doesn't break down just because he didn't text back fast enough. She doesn't chase after him when he pulls away, and she doesn't engage in drama just to keep his attention. Instead, she observes. She assesses situations with clarity, and she responds in a way that keeps her dignity intact. When a man realizes that a woman cannot be easily manipulated by emotions, it makes her incredibly attractive. She becomes a mystery, someone he can't predict, someone who doesn't fall into the same patterns as other women he may have encountered. He starts to wonder what's different about her. He becomes intrigued by her ability to stay grounded. He respects the fact that she isn't swayed by temporary emotions, but instead carries herself with a quiet strength that is rare to find. A woman who is emotionally controlled knows when to walk away. She doesn't stay in situations that drain her, and she doesn't fight for people who don't fight for her. She understands that her value isn't determined by how much she can endure, but by how much she respects herself. And that alone makes men see her differently. She sets boundaries without needing to explain herself. She doesn't engage in unnecessary arguments. She doesn't feel the need to prove her worth. She simply knows it. When a man senses that a woman is not easily affected by his actions, it forces him to step up. If he plays games, she doesn't participate. If he disappears and comes back, she doesn't reward inconsistency. If he tries to test her patience, she doesn't react. She simply removes herself from situations that don't align with her standards. This makes him realize that if he wants to be in her life, he has to bring his best self forward. Men are wired to respect strength. And emotional control is one of the strongest traits a woman can have. When she chooses not to be reactive, when she chooses to respond rather than react, when she carries herself with grace and certainty, she creates an undeniable magnetism. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending not to care. It's about knowing that no matter what happens, she will be okay. She will not crumble, she will not lose herself, and she will not let temporary emotions dictate her actions. The most irresistible women are the ones who remain in control of their emotions. They don't chase, they attract. They don't plead, they decide. They don't settle, they elevate. And that kind of energy makes men step up, lean in, and do whatever it takes to earn a place in their lives. Confidence is one of the most attractive qualities a woman can have. It's not just about how she looks or what she wears. It's about how she carries herself, how she speaks, and how she moves through the world. A woman who truly believes in herself, who knows her worth, who doesn't second guess her value, creates an energy that is magnetic. Men can't resist a woman who stands in her power because confidence is rare and it sets her apart. A confident woman doesn't need constant reassurance from a man to feel good about herself. She doesn't wait for compliments to know she's beautiful, and she doesn't seek validation to feel worthy. She already knows. And because she knows, she doesn't shrink herself to make others comfortable. She doesn't downplay her strengths, and she doesn't apologize for taking up space. She walks into a room with certainty, knowing that she belongs there, and that kind of presence is Men are naturally drawn to confidence because it signals strength, independence, and self-respect. A woman who carries herself with confidence doesn't beg for love. She doesn't tolerate mistreatment, and she doesn't allow anyone to make her feel small. She has a deep understanding that her value isn't determined by someone else's perception of her. She decides her worth, and she refuses to let anyone convince her otherwise. One of the most powerful things about a confident woman is that she doesn't chase. She doesn't try to force connections or prove her worth to a man who isn't showing up for her. She knows that the right person will recognize her value without her having to convince them. And because of that, she naturally attracts men who are willing to put in the effort. A man can sense when a woman is secure in herself, and it makes him want to rise to her level. It challenges him to be better, to step up, to prove that he is worthy of her time and attention. Confidence also means having the courage to walk away from what doesn't serve her. A woman who truly values herself doesn't stay in situations where she feels unappreciated. She doesn't settle for half-hearted love, inconsistent effort, or anything that makes her question her worth. She knows that she would rather be alone than be with someone who doesn't recognize her greatness. And that kind of mindset is powerful because it puts her in control. She is not at the mercy of someone else's decisions. She decides what she allows into her life. Men respect and admire women who hold themselves to a higher standard. When a woman refuses to tolerate disrespect, when she doesn't accept less than what she deserves, she commands a different kind of treatment. She teaches people how to treat her by the way she carries herself. She doesn't need to demand respect because her energy naturally commands it. She doesn't need to beg for attention because people naturally gravitate toward her. The most confident women understand that their power doesn't come from external validation. It comes from within. They are not threatened by competition. They do not compare themselves to others, and they do not feel the need to prove themselves. They simply show up as their best selves, knowing that they are already enough. And that level of self-assurance is incredibly attractive to men because it shows that she is whole on her own. A woman who radiates confidence becomes unforgettable. She doesn't fade into the background and she doesn't blend in. She stands out effortlessly because she embraces who she is without hesitation. Men can't resist a woman who is secure in herself because she is a rare find, someone who doesn't need to be saved, completed, or validated. She is already complete, and that is exactly what makes her irresistible. A woman who prioritizes her own life is incredibly attractive to men. When she is focused on her growth, her goals, and her happiness, she creates an energy that naturally draws people in. She isn't waiting around for a man to complete her because she already feels whole. She doesn't put her dreams on hold for a relationship because she understands that her purpose in life is bigger than just being someone's partner. This level of independence makes men take notice. When a woman builds a life she loves, she becomes more intriguing. She has passions, interests, and ambitions that give her depth. She doesn't need constant attention to feel validated because she's already fulfilled by the things she's doing. She enjoys her own company, and she doesn't feel the need to fill every moment with a man's presence. This creates a natural balance in her relationships because she doesn't come across as needy or desperate. Instead, she exudes a quiet confidence that says, I am happy with or without you. And that is exactly what makes men want to be around her. Men are drawn to women who have a sense of purpose. When a woman is busy creating something meaningful in her life, whether it's her career, her hobbies, or her personal development, she doesn't have time to obsess over a man's every move. She isn't overanalyzing his texts, worrying about when he's going to call, or adjusting her entire schedule to fit his. She is focused on what she's building, and that makes her incredibly desirable. A woman with a purpose gives off an energy that is rare. She isn't sitting around waiting to be chosen. She's out there making things happen for herself. Men respect and admire women who have their own lives because it creates a challenge. A woman who is too available, who drops everything for a man, who makes him the center of her world, often loses her sense of individuality. She becomes predictable. And predictability can sometimes lead to being taken for granted. But when a woman is focused on her own path, when she is busy accomplishing things, she remains a mystery. A man has to work to fit into her life because she isn't just sitting around waiting for love to happen. She's out there living. A woman who prioritizes herself also sets a different standard for how she should be treated. She isn't willing to accept less than what she deserves because she knows her worth. She doesn't tolerate inconsistency. She doesn't settle for half-hearted effort, and she doesn't waste time on situations that don't align with her values. She respects herself too much to let someone treat her like an afterthought. And because of that, men step up. They know that if they want to be in her life, they have to bring something valuable to the table. They have to match her energy, her ambition, and her drive. This kind of woman is never in a position where she has to beg for love or attention. She doesn't need to manipulate or play games to keep a man interested. She is secure in herself, and she trusts that the right person will appreciate her for who she is. She isn't afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't serve her, and that level of self-respect makes her even more desirable. Men can't resist a woman who is focused on her own life because she represents something powerful, independence. She doesn't need a man, but she chooses to be with one who adds value to her already fulfilling life. And that is the key. She is not looking for someone to complete her. She is looking for someone who complements her. That kind of energy is rare, and it is exactly what makes her unforgettable. When a woman detaches, she becomes the kind of woman men can't resist, not because she's playing games or manipulating emotions, but because she understands her worth. She knows that her life, her happiness, and her purpose are not dependent on a man's presence. She doesn't beg for attention. She doesn't settle for less than she deserves. Instead, she holds herself to a higher standard, remains emotionally in control, radiates confidence, and focuses on her own growth. Men are wired to pursue, to step up for a woman who values herself, to invest in someone they feel they must work for. When a woman pulls back and prioritizes her own life, she triggers a man's natural instinct to chase. But the beauty of detachment is that she's not doing it for him. She's doing it for herself. And that's what makes her irresistible. The woman who detaches knows that she is already enough. She doesn't need to be chosen because she chooses herself first. And in doing so, she commands a level of respect, admiration, and desire that no man can ignore.